Welcome to the Edward Jones Beat Reporters Inbox. I'm Jane Lee, the A's reporter for MLB.com, and I have Chris here asking some questions.
Hi, first question is from Kyle. Is Khris Davis interested in signing an extension?
Very much so. Khris Davis has made it known that he is interested. Of course, it takes both sides, mutual interest, and beyond that, there's a lot involved. And I know that Khris loves Oakland. He always has. He would love to stay here. I think, he loves playing in this ballpark. And, they obviously love him here too. And I know that, he would probably even take less money to stay here. Now, of course, his agent wants to make sure that he has the right deal in place. And, it'll be interesting to see if the A's can make that happen. But, there's definitely mutual interest, but it goes beyond that.
Okay, next question is from Nicole. Any word on the progress of James KAPRIELIAN?
Yeah, James KAPRIELIAN, he had a little bit of a setback coming back from Tommy John surgery, actually with his shoulder, but he's back to throwing. And I know that this was a guy that maybe some people thought by the end of this season he could maybe be a contributor to the A's rotation, but unfortunately because of these setbacks, I think it's going to take him a while to build up that arm strength again, to where he's actually pitching in games. So next year, hopefully, maybe by the end of the year, that he is a guy that, we are talking about in the rotation.
Great. Next question is from Brandon. If the A's are in the wild card game, who starts?
That's a really good question, and I don't think that is a question that we can answer right now. There's a lot of baseball left to be played, and while you would think right now, Sean Manaea is obviously the one guy that's made every one of his starts. He is the guy at the top of the rotation right now. But we saw last night faltered a little bit, and if those struggles continue, I would expect for them to keep a close eye on some of the veteran guys like Edwin Jackson and even Mike Fiers. I mean, he just joined the rotation, but has a track record, and is a guy, I think that they would, consider in that situation. I don't think this is a time where, it's really merit-based at all. It's obviously who's pitching the best, who can give them the best chance on that particular day to win that game.
Great. We've got a question from Frank. With the addition of Sean Kelly, can the pen stay fresh till October?
You would hope so. Still, though, I mean, as we've seen in recent games, even with so many plus guys down there, you're still asking for a lot of innings out of guys like Yusmeiro Petit, Lou Trevino, and of course, Yuri's Familia and Blake Trinan will probably continue to pitch on back-to-back days if necessary. I mean, all of these games hold so much meaning that they just can't hold back these guys. Yet you have to remember, it's not just about the workload right now, but about the workload that they've already had this season, and they've asked a lot of these guys. So, there's a big balance of trying to keep them fresh and healthy, but also, trying to win games. And when you're trying to win games, you want to have your best arms out there. And, I think at the very least, he gives you another option in front of those guys. So hopefully, if starters right now can give them, if not 6 innings, at least 5, and you have so many of those plus guys there to finish those games, hopefully they're in good shape down the line.
Okay, and we have Chris. When will Franklin Barreto stay up for good? He needs to play.
Yeah, Barreto, I think, has logged more miles than probably anyone this year, going back and forth. And I mean, guys before him have done it. We saw this with Matt Olson last year. Of course, Olson, got his opportunity to stay once they traded Yonder Alonso, and I think that's what fans are thinking of right now. When does Barreto get that chance that Olson had? But you look at the team last year compared to where they are right now. It was a very different situation last year. It was a young team, just kind of kick-starting that rebuilding mode. And, they saw a chance for development with Olson. And right now, when you're competing for a postseason spot, it's really not time for development. The development can happen at AAA. That's why they sent, someone like Dustin Fowler down, even though they truly believe that Fowler's their center fielder of the future. They needed him to, play. They needed him to get at bats and to continue to develop, and that couldn't happen here while they're trying to win games. And the same kind of holds true for Barreto. They have obviously a solid middle infield right now. And that combination is what they feel like will help them win games. And the best thing for Barreto, if he's not playing every day up here, he needs to be playing every day down there.
Great. Next question is from Bob. Do you think there's a chance we'll see Jesus Luzardo in September?
It's a popular question right now, just because, of course, Luzardo obviously recently got promoted to AAA, did very well in his AAA debut, performed exactly like he has the rest of the year at AA, Single A, and I don't think it's a question that anyone thought we would have to be asking at this point, just because he's, just kind of sped through the system so quickly. And while I wouldn't rule it out, I would be a little surprised if you saw him here in September or even, beyond, just because they do have him on an innings limit this year. This is a guy that's still coming off Tommy John surgery. They want to be careful with him, and I don't know that you risk such a talent like him, especially when you've built up so much depth here. So you hope that, by the end of August, when it is time to, decide on your final roster, guys that will be qualified for the postseason, you hope that they're in decent shape enough to not have to, answer that question and just kind of keep them on track. And of course, I would be very surprised if we didn't see him at the start of next year.
Great. Now I have a question from Steve. Bob Melvin, Manager of the Year?
I could definitely see it. I think you look at last year, what Paul Molitor did with the Twins, kind of similar in that the A's were not expected to contend at all. They were supposed to, I think, just hang around 500 for most of the season, and you look at what Bob Melvin's done with his club. It's really incredible. He's obviously won the award before in both leagues, and I think at this point is one of maybe the most underrated managers in the game. Probably not talked about just because of the market that he is in, but it's not just this year. It goes back to years past and what he's been able to do with his club every year, building up to this point. I think every guy in there respects him a ton, and I do hope that he gets the recognition that he deserves.
Great. A question from Rich. Will the A's make any more moves prior to the August 31st deadline?
I would be a little surprised, just because they're, even though they are in a position to where they have added recently, and they're making a run for this, of course, they're still limited in what they have to work with in their resources, which kind of forces them to be a little more creative, and they're less flexible. So I think to this point they've done a great job with what they have and the trades that they have made, but I would kind of expect them to kind of stand pat going forward, barring anything crazy like a serious injury to a position player.
Great. We have a question from Alyssa. What can we expect from Mike Fiers in his A's debut?
I think the A's, hope that they can get a lot of innings out of Fiers. He's a guy that, is known to get a lot more than maybe out of his stuff than maybe it would suggest. And a guy that's just known going out there, being aggressive, and eating up innings. And they don't really have that type of guy in there right now, a guy that, they've been able to turn to eat up those innings. So, hopefully this is that guy for them, because even if it's just, once every 5 days, any rest that this bullpen can get right now is very much needed.
Question from John. What about getting a long-term deal with Chapman done?
Again, kind of like Khris Davis, I think the interest there is definitely mutual, but I think it's also a little tricky with a young guy like Chapman, and a team like the A's who don't have a long track record of handing out long extensions to young guys. It's a tricky course, and Chapman obviously being a Scott Boras rep, it makes it a little bit, even more trickier. But I do think that, I would expect for the conversation to at least be there, dialogue to be open, and hopefully, in due time, whether it's, an extension that at least takes him through his arbitration years or beyond, hopefully there is something that can be done, because I don't think that they've seen, a talent like this here in a long time.
Question from Brian. Any chance we see AJ Puck next year, May or June?
Tommy got Tommy John surgery, guys. A little tricky. You can never predict, their timeline. You want to think that a year after surgery they'll be good to go back out there. But I think teams are being, even more cautious these days. And I think, Puck having had the surgery when he did in April, I don't think that April is very fair. He needs to, get healthy, obviously, get back into a throwing program, get back into game action. So I would be surprised if the A's didn't see Puck next year, but I don't expect it to be in the first half.
Okay, Lester asks, any chance that the A's sign Lucroy to another contract after this year? I think he's great for the young guys.
Yeah, Jonathan Lucroy is an interesting case. I think going into the year, I think people maybe thought at the trade deadline, just like Jed Lowry, maybe these are guys that are going to be on the move if the club's not contending. That, of course, didn't happen. They not only hung on to all of their pieces, but they added. And Lucroy, though he hasn't, done a whole lot offensively, I mean, his presence, what he's done behind the plate for this young staff, I mean, it's been really remarkable. You don't see all the things that he's done for this team. And I think his presence alone has meant so much to them, and a guy that, I think that they would at least have to consider holding on to beyond this year, even if it's just for 1 year. Because I'm not sure that, Sean Murphy, their top catching prospect, will be ready as soon as next year. And I think, so long as Murphy's still developing, you kind of need a guy like Lucroy to, take charge and continue carrying these guys.
Question from Christian. Do the A's have a realistic chance of contending in the AL West for years to come with their farm system?
You would hope so. I mean, this isn't a team that, if they make the postseason this year, it's not one and done. They weren't even expected to be here, this year. This is, a team that wants to compete for years to come. They obviously have the young talent to hopefully be able to do so. And it's just about, keeping guys healthy and hopefully, keeping guys for the long term. Thank you for joining the Edward Jones Beat Reporters Inbox.